Yeah, I'm just going to I'm going to preface our conversation by saying that it is a bit echoey. You said you were in a classroom. Is that what you do?
Yeah, I teach global history at high school in New York City.
What's that like?
It's intense. It's wild. I'm in Brooklyn. I'm in a transfer school in Brooklyn. This is what I've been doing since Crime and Stereo stopped being a full-time touring band a while ago now, 14 years ago.
What's you?
So yeah.
You just said something then that I didn't know what it was. You said tran. I didn't.
Oh yes, I'm sorry. I of course I don't. This is an alternative school. So New York City has a whole network of alternative schools that try to reach different kinds of kids that fall through the cracks. So transfer schools are schools where we take kids that are over age and undercredited, which means these are kids that like should be further along in their high school careers, but for whatever reason, kind of left school and are now coming back and trying to, most of them are self motivated to kind of have a second chance at a lot of the mistakes that they made. So a lot of these kids dropped out, for various reasons. A lot of them have deaths in the family. There's, gang issues or, kids in different neighborhoods. We have a lot of kids that are gay and trans kids that got bullied out of other schools, and so we take them in and try to get them caught up so they could graduate high school on time or as
I
close
mean,
to as possible. Yeah.
yeah, amazing. All credit to you. That does sound rewarding, but I'm sure it's challenging.
Yes, yeah. It's rewarding when you can step back from it. So, when you're on summer break or something like that, it's when you're not in it. I'm sure like a lot, like every job, like when you're not in it and you have a moment to breathe, you have more gratitude for it. But when you're, nose to the grindstone doing it every day, it can be,
Do you
it's
miss
like any job.
Do you miss doing the band full time?
Um, Yes and no. I mean, playing shows is my favorite thing to do in the world. Playing live on stage is my favorite thing. It's like, the thing that I feel like I was like meant to do. I love making music and writing songs and making records and playing shows. Those are my favorite things. But at this stage in my life, if I was on tour full time, I think that it would be more stressful and anxiety inducing and like pain causing than the rewards would be. I like having a wife and a child and a dog and a house and all of these things, and to leave them for months at a time. I don't think that that's where I'm at now. Look, that how about this? That's a luxury and a blessing to be able to say that because I did it for so long and I spent so much time on tour. Crime and Stereo was on tour for about 7 years straight from 2004 to 2010. So getting to do it and seeing all the whole world and getting to see every city, a dozen times or whatever makes it a lot easier to be like, hey, I'm at a different stage in my life.
Well, I guess the obvious question to follow up on is what was it that made you think after 13 years I'm going to do this again?
Oh, we so Crime and Stereo broke up the first time because it was the original lineup, and as happens with people, like certain members grew apart from others, and there were kind of like fractures and fissures, and it got to the point where there were just like people in the band that we weren't getting along with. And then when we reformed the band in like 2013 or 2014, it was me and Christian and Gary who were the original members, and then we got Eric on bass, Eric Fairchild, and Brett Romness on drums. Brett also plays in I Am the Avalanche and the Movie Life, and he's a big producer. He makes a lot of great, amazing records. So since this has been kind of like the second lineup, I mean, like we are best friends. In the 10 years this has been the lineup to the band, I don't think we've had a single disagreement, let alone an argument or anything like that. And so the original plan was to get back together and dive right back in. And then we started playing shows, and then, as happens, things got in the way, and we did start making a record in probably 2016 that eventually got shelved. There's a song that's all floating around on the internet called "The Good Empire" that was never like officially properly released, but is out there. That was from those sessions, and we just eventually scrapped that record because we felt like it wasn't representative really of what we were capable of. And then that's how we got House and Trance. And, we spent 2 years making House and Trance, which sounds misleading. We did all of the music and then literally didn't touch it for a year. An entire year went by, and then we went and did all the vocals and the leads and the mixing and everything. So it's, we're not the most, I don't know, we're not the most like, productive guys.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about building up anticipation as well. Did you were saying about the record that you scrapped? Was there anything like a riff or a lyric, or was there anything that made it onto this record you've released now?
No, nothing. And honestly, like, I don't mean to make it sound like, oh, this record was terrible. Like, I'm sure we'll actually release it at some point. It's like that song, "The Good Empire," I think is really cool. Most of the stuff was great, but it just, I don't know. It honestly, it felt like we made like "Is Dead" Part Two. I think there's like a decision kind of a lot of all bands probably make in the course of making an album, which is, are we giving the fans what they want? Like, you have an idea for what your fan base wants, and you kind of have to make the choice. Like, do we give the people just like what they're expecting and what they want, or do we want to do what we want and kind of make the album that we think we have? And the first album was more of that first thing. It basically sounded like "Is Dead" Part Two. It was like very similar. And again, the songs were very good, but we made "Is Dead," I don't know, over 15 years ago. It's like, I don't know, 17 years ago or something like that at this point. And it just felt to us personally like, I don't know, it's just not right. That's not who we are. So House and Trance, I think, is the record we should have made.
It's interesting that you say that you made that record in 2016. A lot of people, I'm very interested. Interested is the wrong word. I'm terrified. I'm very interested in trying to work out where our world has gone wrong. I think the seeds of where we're at now, like, span decades, but it does feel a little bit. Maybe it's an easy narrative of 2016 and Trump, but it does feel a little bit like 2016 was a
Yeah, for sure.
was a year. I think there was. I can kind of. It's not really my place right now to kind of go into it, but my general feeling is that actually there was something about 2014. I actually think, but was that's interesting because this record is so fraught in I don't want to say places, but kind of throughout, really. Like, it really is, like, it doesn't pull any punches about how dystopian things feel. Was the record that you made in 2016, did that have the same tone and vibe about it?
Yeah, I think that's kind of just like the music that we write. I think that it's always kind of like a state of the world kind of thing. But also, it's like, these are the things that I think about, that we think about. So trust me when I say, like, there is no ever time where it's like, we're going to do a political song, or like, we're going to do a political record, like, we're going to write this thing about this. It is just generally like what our personal feelings are in a given moment. That's what comes out. And the world as it is now is, I don't know really how to like verbalize it. It feels, for me personally, I can say, like, I feel like a fish swimming in vinegar. That, like, I exist in this medium that isn't particular to like one location or one community or anything. It's like, it is the world. It's the entire state of the world. And it feels toxic and poisonous to just like exist in this medium. And I think that I'm guessing or speculating that, like, I think a lot of people feel that way. And you're, as an individual, you're so small in the cogs of the machinery of the world that even if you're like, I'm making a life change and I'm making a world change and I'm, doing the right thing, it doesn't change the world around you in terms of the world you have to live in. And it's garbage. We live in hell world right now. It's over.
Okay, lots to unpack there. I I kind of yeah, I had a bit of a I've always been a very engaged, optimistic, creative person. I've always kind of my politics are on the left. I think maybe they're a little bit more maybe heterodox, maybe than just totally aligned with the left. But I do consider myself a liberal. I kind of had a bit of a moment a couple of months ago where I was like, doing any of the things that I do, my podcast, making music, writing, being on social media, like it almost felt like I was kind of co-signing the horror of the world by just taking part. It was almost like, oh, I'm endorsing this shit show by being part of what is going on. Like, not that I'm contributing to, the rewriting of history that you talk about, or what's not, but just by going along with it without making some kind of stand, that made me feel like I was complicit. But I can't live like that. Like, I have to try. I have to try to put good things into the world. I mean, you just made a record, right? Like, if you totally thought the world was beyond hope, you wouldn't make art, surely.
Yes, sure. I don't know. I don't know. I don't, I make music because I have to be honest with you. I know that's like, I don't know, like a cliche thing to say, but like everybody's got their thing. Everybody's got their, what they do to keep themselves sane and to keep their head on straight. And for me, that's, writing and recording and making music. And that's what part of like why we had a record that was scrapped and why we have all this stuff. It's like I'm always writing songs, I'm always recording songs, like we're always doing stuff because we need to do it. Like, does it have to go out into the world? I don't know. I mean, like, we make good, I think we make good stuff, and so I'm happy for people to hear it. I like for people to hear it and enjoy it. But if Crime and Stereo didn't get to be a band and we didn't get to like travel all over the world playing shows, like I would still be making songs in my bedroom because I have to. And that to me is kind of like the true nature of art, especially as it comes to music, which is like, a really strange medium of art to kind of work and try to exist in. Um, I don't know. I don't know that. I don't know. I don't know that you have to get your music out there. This is like, as I'm hearing myself say it, it's like sometimes maybe you can just make your own art and keep it to yourself, and you don't, have to get it out there. It's very self-aggrandizing. It's to be like, no, the world has to hear my art. People need this. I'm sure they don't. I'm sure that people would be fine with all of the millions of amazing bands and artists out there that also make music. They'll live without Prime and Stereo. But also, to be honest with you, there's like a little bit about it that's like kind of sad. The bleaker stuff we write, and then the more people react to it, you would think that you'd be like, oh my God, this is amazing. But it's more like, man, like that's fucking bleak that like that there, that people, this many people feel this way, that this many people agree with these sentiments, that people connect so strongly with what is ultimately like a pretty fed up mind state.
When did you feel that we're in began?
I think you're right on. I think it was this slow creep in the early tens, the early 2010s, that really was brought to the surface in 2016 in the American presidential election. I hate doing this because it sounds like such a clear and obvious cop out, but I really genuinely believe that like most of this is social media, is due to the influence of social media. You, you know, 2000, I think 2008 was Twitter and 2010 was Instagram. And like, they were cool in, in the beginning, early days, that people were having fun with it and figuring it out and everything. And then it just got super, super dark. I mean, again, listen, I work in a high school. Like, the effect of Instagram on young people, on young girls especially, is horrifying. What we've seen happen to the suicide rates amongst teens, especially amongst teenage girls. TikTok, Snapchat, all of these things. Like, I trust me when I say, like, you would not believe how detached your average teenager is from like the world, like the real world around them. Like, they more or less exist on the internet now. And I think that what happened in 2016 was, for people that don't live online, it was a shock that you were like, oh my God, the vitriol, the kind of like darkness of how these people feel and how they think and how ugly the rhetoric is. But I think if you spend a lot of time online, it wasn't surprising. I think that is the internet experience. Like, it's ugly as hell. These, this is all well documented, but these algorithms are designed to increase engagement, and people getting along isn't engaging. Pushing people to the extremes is what makes engagement. So I don't know. It's just it's crazy to be an adult, to be like kind of an adult approaching middle age, and just see like, look, how about this? Even take it back from politics. I worries the wrong word. I'm concerned that like there won't even be like culture anymore, like an American culture or anything like that, because it used to be that there were all of these, like bench posts, benchmarks or signposts of things that we all had in common. It's like everybody's seen what The Matrix or Back to the Future or something, and everybody's heard Michael Jackson through. Maybe Michael Jackson's a bad example here, but it's like everybody's heard Nirvana, Nevermind. Like, there were all of these kind of things that were points of commonality in every country, everywhere, for people to kind of have these points in common. And now with the internet, like, I genuinely don't think that's the case. Like, I don't know how many kids like see movies anymore or like listen to the same albums. I know kids are listening to music, but it's like, even if you mention something that's popular, anything short of like Taylor Swift or, Harry Styles, like the most popular artist in the world, it's like, maybe you'll have, two teenagers that are into that thing, but then another three are into this other thing. And then another five are into the third thing. And none of them have any clue or conception about the existence of these other things. Like, it leads to a fracturing that I don't know how these things kind of coalesce back together. And to be honest with you, I don't think they will.
So what is it? I mean, I do have some thoughts on that. I mean, working in media, it's, sometimes I just feel, I mean, obviously, all publications that have always had a political leaning, whether it's been conscious or not, just because of the people that they employ. But, there has been like the left-wing press, the right-wing press, not so much of a centrist kind of place for media, but there's always been that. But what is interesting now is it feels like people just live within their, they travel on their own highways, and they very rarely cross us. I mean, so you just think that's how things are now? I mean, I'm not sure I necessarily agree, but what does the world look like there?
I mean, look, I don't know. Part of the to me, the worst effect of the internet that has bled into the real world is people thinking that they are right and correct and justified, no matter how batshit crazy the things they think are. Yeah. Because you can find a group on the internet that is supporting these things. And it's like, listen, if for all of my existence in America, like, of course we always had racist people. And of course we always had like Nazi, fascist minded, authoritarian people. But now the gusto with which they are explicit and open and proud about it. And you're like, wait, but like, it's a bad thing to be a racist or it's a bad thing to be a Nazi, right? And they're like, no, it's fine. In fact, it's good. And
Mm.
here's my 10 reasons why. And I do not remember ever witnessing that before really the last 10 or 15 years. Again, there have always been Nazis and racists, but they had the good sense, air quotes, good sense to keep it to themselves and keep it low key and keep it underground.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now
yeah.
that people are waving their flags and they're like, no, Nazi shit is amazing. I'm trying to spread it. And it's crazy. And it's honestly crazy. And it's people from my generation too that have kids now that are raising these kids to think these things are okay. I'll tell you a story that is utterly horrifying and completely true. So on Long Island, where I grew up and I am from, I have a friend who is a dean of students at a high school there. And they had a bunch of kids. He's also one of the football coaches. They had a bunch of kids that on the JV football team that were mercilessly bullying a Bangladeshi student. And it was because this place is so white bread, Long Island, that this Bangladeshi kid was the only person of color in the building. So they're calling him the N-word. Every time he walks into a room, they're using the Apu, from The Simpsons voice on him. It gets worse. They got his cell number and started texting him photos of the cop kneeling on George Floyd's neck. And so the deans, are trying to get ahead of this, and they contact the parents. And one of the parents says, this is all fine with me. I've instructed my kid that he doesn't have to talk to anyone who isn't white and Catholic. Now, this is in New York. This is 15 miles outside of New York City in 2023. The kids, the bullying kids, pop over. The Bangladeshi kid is using the bathroom. They go over the stalls and take pictures of him, like while he's using the bathroom, and spread it around on social media of this, immigrant kid taking a shit. And so that was finally had crossed enough explicit, rules that they were able to finally kind of take action against these kids, and they throw them all off the football team. The parents of these students started a change.org petition to have the teacher, the dean that kicked them off the football team, to have him removed from the school district. They filed a lawsuit against him, and they are openly showing up at the school with placards to protest the employment of this teacher who tried to penalize these kids for mercilessly, ruthlessly racist bullying the one student of color in the entire school. And these parents are filing lawsuits saying, yeah, how dare you stop my kids from bullying other kids because of their race. So I know that that's heavy, but if you work in education, trust me, this is the shit that goes on every single day. And
Yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I think the thing
I guess my final point is that if the parents are justifying these things and saying we will use our resources, our wealth and money and influence to hire lawyers in order to preserve our children's right to be racist shitbag bullies, I don't know what to do with that.
Hey, listen, I'm a big fan of America. I think that America, in many ways, has done an integrated society with people of all creeds, colours, etc., better than perhaps anyone. But I think that it's in a really, really ugly place, and I think that I just think your country has such a complicated relationship with race, and for all of the steps forward, it just feels like every time you take a step forward, there's two or three backwards.
Yeah, and again, that to me, that story that I just told, that is a product of the internet, because these parents also now live online. You were talking about people in their 40s that just no longer exist in the physical real world. They spend all of their time online. And like, there is a level of brain rot that you get if you, I mean, the more time you spend online, the more time you spend on social media, like it leads to brain rot. And the time back in American, how far back in American history you would have to go, not to where we have racists and bullies, but to where people were openly, proudly wearing it on their sleeves like this. It's like you're talking about segregation era.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, totally, yeah, yeah.
and that really is the thing, is just so many people feel so justified and righteous in their absolutely dog shit garbage opinions about, the world, and how essentially like they're sitting atop the power structure of the world. I mean, I think there's a lot of people that genuinely believe that bullying is good, that if you acquire power, that using that power to, stand on people's necks, like that is some cool ass American shit. And I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what to do with that.
What are you doing next that you're looking forward to?
Crime and stereo wise, sorry,
Just in your life,
in
just in
my
your.
life,
I just
like,
want to, just because we're approaching half an hour, I just want to make sure that when you go, you're going to be all right. I just feel like
oh,
you having
like
anything nice for tea or.
this is what I mean when I say that it's like I feel like a fish swimming in vinegar. Like I live in this world. You can't get away from it. I work in South Brooklyn, and so I live and work right in New York City, and I don't know. It's gnarly for sure. But there's a lot of positive things. Like I said, I love my family. I love my wife and my dog and my son and my house and my friends. And I love having a band. I love my bandmates. I love playing shows. But look, all that stuff is good to keep your head on straight and to act as like a counterbalance to all of the darkness of the world. But like the darkness is encroaching. It's increasingly encroaching. And the internet isn't making it better. Social media is not making it better. I don't think there's like a way out from all of this stuff, to tell you the truth. I'm not trying to be bleak and dystopian, but it's about, power structures and incentives, and the people that have the power to change these things are not incentivized to do so. In fact, they're incentivized to further entrench their power. And in terms of a lot of this technology, that means pushing people to the fringes, pushing people to extreme positions. Again, like that's how you keep people engaged. That's how you keep people on these platforms. And yeah,
I'm fairly certain. I mean, what's happening in the Middle East has made me sure that we are heading to some kind of global conflict. And I'm saying that a bit flippantly, but almost better to know. But I'm pretty sure that's where we're going. But I sometimes wonder a little bit with social media. I mean, when I was at school, I'm mad on history myself. But when I was at school, I did loads of stuff on the arrival of the printing press and how that caused fractions in society that took a long time to find any kind of equilibrium. It created violence and all sorts of revolutionary movements. Some of them for the greater good, and some of them not. I just think I don't know. I just feel like the times we live in are extraordinary, but I do think there is a way back. So
yeah. I mean, look, hopefully, of course, hopefully, I'm not, laying down in the road and just, giving up. But we'll see. Okay. So you bring up the printing press. Here's like a kind of glimmer of hope, maybe, for this internet thing. Is like my favorite printing press story is that it's when the printing press comes out. So there have always been people with eye problems, right? Of course, for as long as there have been, human beings, there have been people with various health ailments. But for all of human history, people couldn't read. There was nothing to read, and there was no, there was an extraordinarily low literacy rate. And so if you had myopia or nearsightedness, there was really no way for you to know because there was nothing, everything you're looking at is far away. When the printing press is invented, it actually leads to all of a sudden people realizing they're nearsighted and they can't read. There had already been eyeglasses, but made in like incredibly small numbers. And when the printing press comes out and all of a sudden there are things to read, then people realize they have eye problems. And that is what leads to what becomes the lens industry, because now they start making lenses for eyeglasses. And it is that actually leads to Galileo and Copernicus and the invention of the telescope. There never could have been a telescope until there was good enough lenses to create those things. And again, the lenses were only created to correct myopia in people that could now read where there was nothing to read before. And so my hope would be maybe we get something like that, that maybe social media is the printing press. And then because of these other ancillary things that happen, maybe we get astronomy, a new astronomy out of it. You know what I mean? Like not necessarily relating to outer space, but some kind of tangential branch of science that literally changes the entire world for everyone forever, that no one ever could have saw coming. And that is an effect of this other thing where they were totally unrelated. So I would hope for that. That would be cool.
As a bespectacled man, I feel a lot better for hearing that. So thank you for leaving me on a note of positivity. Listen, if the world doesn't end and we're not all engulfed in, if we don't all burn up because of the glare of the sun, as you say on your record, then I will certainly go see your band play, and it would be great to speak again. Thank you so much for your time today.
Please do. Yeah, we'll be over in the UK in early 24 for sure. We can't announce yet, but we will be announcing dates soon. We're going to be over there soon.
Amazing. See you in the pit and all that.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for talking. Sorry to bum you out. Sorry to bum out.
It's all good. I enjoyed it an awful lot. Take care, man. See you then.
Yeah, man.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you.